fighting stories. We're all trying to break stories. So you got to get up early. You got to go sleep late. It's just how it works.
Right. That's what I always say. You got to get up early in the morning to beat me.
We're all trying to be the Rock.
well, look, you guys, formerly of TMZ, you got a new entertainment news podcast. It's called Hollywood Raw. Can you kind of give us a rundown, and then I want to, kind of go over some stories that are going on right now, and you guys can talk about them and comment. But talk to us a little bit about the podcast.
Yeah, well, listen, Adam and I have spent, a decade each in this industry. We've seen things that no one else has seen. We've done things. We've broken stories. And so when we left TMZ, we were like, well, what do we do? Like, How do we tell people about these stories? And so we started up Hollywood Raw as a way to just, pull back the curtain on Hollywood and really discuss what's really going on between the setup, paparazzi photo shoots, to the news, how we broke some of the biggest stories in Hollywood. I mean, Adam over there, he was behind the big fight with Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. I was behind breaking big stories like Michael Jackson's death. And all kinds of stuff. And so,
not to cut you off.
Say that again?
Yeah. Not to cut you off, and I'm sorry, but it's so crazy. That's one of the stories that I thought about when we were, going to be interviewing you guys and talking to you guys, Michael Jackson's death, because you guys were the first ones who broke that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I literally was the guy that got the first call from someone saying, hey, there's an ambulance at Michael Jackson's house.
That's crazy.
You need to look into this. And that's how it all started steamrolling down from there. And, I was outside Michael Jackson's house later that night reporting on his death with CNN and HLN and all these different news sites. And that was a really wild day. But we get into that kind of stuff on the podcast. It's like, how did it happen? How did the day unfold? Where were you? What'd you do? But not only that, we talk to celebrities, obviously. We've got a lot of friends that are in the industry, and we talk to them. But on top of that, let's talk to the bodyguards out there. We've had Kim Kardashian, Kanye West bodyguard. We've had Justin Bieber's bodyguard on. We've had all these bodyguards to say what it's like to work with these celebrities on a day-to-day basis. Or we've had private flight attendants. What are these celebrities ordering on the private jets? We've had Hollywood fixers. We've had sex tape dealers. We've had kind of everyone out there to break down what it's like to work in Hollywood with these celebrities.
Man, that's incredible.
People love the story behind the story, and it's at the end of the day, Hollywood is high school. So if people want to kind of relive their high school memories through Hollywood, who's cool, who's not, it's so much fun. Our audience kind of loves this kind of fourth wall perspective of the industry, and it's just. We want to show people how this sausage is made. We're seeing that more and more in Hollywood. This industry is being exposed. Now, we're not trying to our goal is not to really expose the industry, but it's more to humanize and have fun with it.
Well, I just got to ask you because, I know so many people always wonder, how, you guys worked for TMZ. Now you have, your podcast, Hollywood Raw, which, is available exclusively on Red Coral Universe. It's huge. Looking forward to checking out the podcast. How does TMZ do it? How did you guys over the years break all these stories before the CNN, before the HLNs, before, the big, news organizations like TMZ? I'll be honest, with going back to the Michael Jackson's death, I remember TMZ broke that story first, and people were trying to fact check TMZ and be like, no way, we got to go over and check these other news sources to see if TMZ's right. And you guys were right. You guys get it before anybody else. How? And not just somebody.
I'll tell you how. It is the hardest working news station in the country.
Okay.
That room is full of some of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life. Harvey Levin, that is his thing. He is instilled working hard, not giving up, and getting down to the truth. And so, that is what I learned there. And so, that plays a part in what we do nowadays. I mean, Ab and I don't give up. We break a lot of stories still, and we're constantly on kind of the pulse of Hollywood and what's really going on.
Man.
Yeah, news is like a sport. Everyone's trying to fight to be the first to break the story.
Right.
And you see a lot of people that, for me, Dax and I talk about the difference between reporters and journalists. And journalists try to find the story. Dax and I and people at TMZ, they try to get contacts and develop these contacts and relationships with people. And once the story's broke, you kind of question the story. And once you start asking around more and more about the story and trying to find out as much as possible, you find out stories within the stories that make even bigger stories. So it's just kind of being aggressive with these stories and being proactive rather than waiting for the phone call to ring. And Dax and I, that's what we do in the Hollywood Raw podcast. People want to hear how the story's broken, and we kind of break them down, like what it was like for us. And we have other journalists on the podcast. This past week, we had one of our friends, Jessica Finn from the U.S. Sun. She talks about how she broke the story about Andy Cohen this past week, and there's a big story about him going on about sexual harassment in the workplace by a former Real Housewives cast member.
Oh boy!
And she talks about how the story is broken and why the cast member wanted to break the story with her, and just how she had to get a lot of sources to kind of put the story out, and they had to have lawyers kind of go into the story and say, okay, the story is finally ready to be live and public. And then also it's interesting with this story that's huge news about Andy Cohen. Some outlets are not even doing the story, and we talk about that. And then the reason why they're not doing the story is because they want to have the they want to have the relationship with Bravo and Andy Cohen. So, show business is Hollywood is sports, it's politics, it's high school, all in one, and that's what makes us obsessed with the industry.
But TMZ is kind of like broke that whole rule where, hey, if they do a story like Andy Cohen and his network and all that, like they can't not have a relationship and be on good terms with TMZ no matter what, because the TMZ is not like just out to get somebody. You actually break the news. It's not like an opinion, or it's not like a fake, like a tabloid. It's the actual truth. And that's the crazy part. TMZ is kind of like broken that mold, because everywhere else it's their opinions and it's what people think, and it's too many guesses and all that. But TMZ just reports the facts. It's crazy. It's wild.
Yeah, I always thought that TMZ kind of really came up where everyone was kissing Hollywood's butt. We always had the new shows like Entertainment, Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight, where they kind of loosely cover these stories. But when you do a lawsuit, when there's lawsuits made, those are public information. And TMZ's like, we're going to put those stories out there. We're not going to kind of not let these people get by without being spoke about. This is a news story, and they're going to have to keep these people in check. So that's what I think we're really kind of made TMZ famous. And then also, for guys like myself, I'm a journalist. I'm a video journalist running around the street. I'm not allowed to get on the red carpet. People don't like me. They don't allow me on the red carpet. So what do? I try to get my interviews on the street. But I think, personally, these interviews on the street became raw. They're fun. They're interesting. They're unique. And the people aren't performing. They're not acting. It's actually a legitimate, real interview. People
like that better nowadays in 2024. Dax and Adam, you got your podcast. If people want to check it out, Hollywood Raw, how can they do that?
Well, head on over to redcoraluniverse.com. That's where you can see a visual element where you can watch us tape it, or you can download the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast.
Yeah, we only got like a minute or two left, but a couple quick stories that we are following. Ben and Jen, I know that's a big one. You guys following that, talking about that?
I'm just glad for it to finally be out there.
It broke my heart
for so long.
Crazy.
It's nice to finally be like, okay, now we can move on to the next story. They've officially filed. Well, she officially filed, and so now we can move on to the next story.
Hopefully now Ben Affleck can go to Dunkin' Donuts in peace.
right. The DNC, you guys been watching that all week, following that?
I mean, I've been catching up on it. We tend to stick out of politics.
Okay.
I feel like nothing good comes out of covering politics too hard when you're in the entertainment space, but. If celebrities show up, we'll report on that.
And then also, real quick, the whole Matthew Perry situation, sad situation.
Sad situation. We've been talking about that a lot. On Fridays, we do an episode where we just go over the top 10 entertainment stories of the week. We break them down for people that don't have time to read all the blogs and all the websites. We do that for you, and we give you basically a Cliff Notes version of, hey, let's hit all the big stories, and obviously Matthew Perry was in the rundown for this week, so we'll be talking about that as well.
Dax and Adam, Hollywood Raw, new podcast. Check it out, Red Coral Universe. Thank you guys so much for checking in. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.